Sergei Kane had never particularly wanted a formal bride selection process, though family tradition and his mother's persistent insistence had ultimately made it impossible to avoid entirely. As the current head of one of the city's most powerful and respected organizations, Sergei understood clearly the importance his family placed on securing an appropriate, strategic marriage, one that would strengthen their influence and reputation within their carefully cultivated social circle. That evening, his family's grand estate had been transformed elegantly to host a formal gathering, carefully arranged specifically to introduce Sergei to 3 young women his mother, Elena Kane, had personally selected as suitable candidates for marriage. Each woman came from a prominent, influential family, chosen carefully for her beauty, sophistication, and strategic value to their organization's continued success. Isabella Moreno, the eldest of the 3 candidates, possessed striking elegance and sharp intelligence, clearly accustomed to commanding attention within any social setting. Camille Dubois, equally beautiful and refined, carried herself with practiced grace, while Victoria Chen completed the trio, her confident charm evident in every carefully measured word and gesture. Sergei, seated formally at the head of the elegantly arranged table, listened politely as each woman engaged him in carefully rehearsed conversation, each clearly eager to demonstrate her suitability as a strategic, appropriate match. Despite their evident beauty and sophistication, Sergei found himself increasingly disengaged, his attention repeatedly drifting elsewhere throughout the formal proceedings. It was during a brief lull in conversation that Sergei first noticed her, a quiet young woman moving gracefully yet unobtrusively among the tables, carefully pouring tea for the assembled guests. She moved with quiet efficiency, her simple, unadorned uniform starkly contrasting against the elegant gowns worn by the 3 formal candidates, yet something about her calm, humble presence captured Sergei's attention entirely. As she approached his own place at the table, carefully pouring tea into his cup, Sergei studied her closely, genuine curiosity evident clearly in his gaze. "Thank you," he said quietly, his tone carrying unexpected warmth. The young woman glanced up briefly, mild surprise evident in her expression at his direct acknowledgement. "You're welcome, sir," she replied politely, her voice soft yet clear, before continuing quietly with her duties. Sergei found himself unexpectedly captivated by her simple, genuine demeanor, so strikingly different from the calculated charm and practiced sophistication displayed by the 3 carefully selected candidates. He watched quietly as she continued moving efficiently among the tables, her calm humility and quiet dignity evident in every unobtrusive gesture. "Sergei," his mother said pointedly, noticing his distracted attention, "Isabella was just asking about your recent business expansion into the Northern Territories." Sergei quickly redirected his attention, offering a polite, though clearly distracted response to Isabella's carefully crafted question. Yet even as he engaged politely with the 3 candidates, his gaze repeatedly drifted back toward the quiet young woman continuing her duties throughout the elegant gathering. As the evening progressed, Sergei found himself increasingly unable to ignore his growing curiosity regarding this unassuming young woman, whose name he didn't yet know, but whose quiet strength and genuine simplicity had captured his attention far more completely than any of the 3 carefully selected candidates. Finally, as dessert was served and conversation continued flowing formally around the table, Sergei made a sudden, unexpected decision. Rising from his seat, he gently caught the young woman's attention as she passed nearby. "Excuse me," he said politely, "would you please join us at the table?" The room fell instantly silent, shock and confusion rippling visibly among the gathered guests. The young woman herself froze, clear disbelief and discomfort evident in her expression at such an unexpected, unconventional request. "Sir, I don't think that would be appropriate," she said quietly, glancing nervously toward Sergei's mother, whose expression had shifted instantly into stunned disapproval. "Please," Sergei insisted gently, though clear determination remained evident in his tone. "I'd simply like the opportunity to properly introduce myself." The young woman hesitated, clearly uncertain how to navigate such an unusual, unexpected situation, while the 3 formal candidates exchanged stunned, offended glances at this unprecedented interruption to their carefully arranged evening. Sergei's mother, visibly displeased, opened her mouth to intervene, though Sergei's firm, unwavering expression made clear his decision remained entirely resolute. As the tension within the elegant dining room grew increasingly palpable, everyone present understood clearly that Sergei's unexpected, unconventional request had just dramatically altered the carefully orchestrated evening, setting the stage for complications and challenges no one present could have anticipated when the evening had first begun. The young woman, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden attention, politely declined Sergei's invitation, quickly excusing herself to continue her duties despite his evident disappointment. Elena Kane, recovering quickly from her initial shock, redirected the evening's conversation firmly back toward the three formal candidates, though tension lingered palpably throughout the remainder of the gathering. Once the guests had departed and the estate had grown quiet, Elena summoned Sergei privately to her study, her expression stern and clearly displeased. "What exactly was that display tonight?" she demanded firmly. "Inviting household staff to join our formal dinner in front of three carefully selected candidates?" Sergei considered his response carefully, unwilling to dismiss his genuine curiosity entirely. "I simply found her presence intriguing," he said honestly. "There was something genuine about her, mother, something I didn't sense from any of tonight's formal candidates." Elena studied her son closely, clear disapproval evident in her expression. "Sergei, you understand the importance of this selection process," she said firmly. "Isabella, Camille, and Victoria each represent significant strategic opportunities for our family's continued success and influence." Sergei nodded respectfully, though his own thoughts remained clearly elsewhere. "I understand the strategic importance," he said carefully, "but surely genuine compatibility matters as well, mother." Elena's expression softened slightly, though clear concern remained evident in her tone. "Compatibility can develop over time within a strategic marriage," she said firmly. "I simply ask that you give the selection process proper consideration before allowing distractions to influence your judgment." Sergei nodded, though privately. He found himself unable to fully dismiss his growing curiosity regarding the quiet young woman whose name he still didn't know. "I'll continue with the selection process as planned," he agreed carefully, though his own private thoughts remained considerably more complicated. Over the following days, Sergei found himself unable to shake his persistent curiosity, repeatedly finding himself distracted during meetings with the three formal candidates, his thoughts drifting instead toward the quiet, genuine young woman he had briefly encountered during the gathering. Finally, unable to fully resist his growing curiosity, he discreetly inquired among the estate's household staff regarding her identity. "Her name is Lena," one of the senior household staff explained carefully. "She's worked here for nearly a year, quiet and hard-working, though she rarely speaks unless necessary." Sergei considered this information thoughtfully, his curiosity deepening further. "Where does she typically work within the estate?" he asked casually, attempting to mask his genuine interest. "Mostly within the kitchen and formal dining areas," the staff member replied. "She's quite skilled, though she keeps mostly to herself." Armed with this small bit of information, Sergei found himself carefully seeking opportunities to encounter Lena again, curious to understand more about the quiet young woman who had so unexpectedly captured his attention. One afternoon, he found her quietly preparing tea within the estate's smaller, private sitting room, unaware of his approach. "Lena," he said gently, careful not to startle her. She turned quickly, clear surprise evident in her expression at his unexpected presence. "Mr. Kane," she said politely, though clear nervousness was evident in her tone. "I apologize. I didn't realize you were here." Sergei offered a reassuring smile. "Please, there's no need to apologize," he said gently. "I was hoping we might have the chance to speak properly, if you're comfortable." Lena studied him carefully, clear uncertainty evident in her expression. "I'm not sure that would be appropriate, sir," she said cautiously. "Given my position here." Sergei considered her hesitation seriously, respecting her evident discomfort. "I understand your caution," he said sincerely. "I simply found myself genuinely curious about you during the gathering the other evening." "There's no pressure, Lena, only genuine interest." Lena studied him closely, surprised by his sincere, gentle approach. "I appreciate your honesty," she said carefully, though clear hesitation remained evident in her tone. "But I worry about the complications such attention might create, both for myself and for you, given your family's expectations." Sergei nodded understandingly, respecting her thoughtful caution. "That's a fair concern," he admitted honestly. "Perhaps we can simply allow a genuine friendship to develop naturally, without unnecessary pressure or expectation." Lena considered his proposal carefully, cautious curiosity evident clearly in her own expression. "I suppose that would be all right," she said finally, a small, genuine smile forming on her lips despite her evident caution. As their brief conversation concluded, Sergei found himself increasingly intrigued and genuinely hopeful about the possibility of building authentic connection with Lena, despite the significant challenges his family's expectations and the ongoing formal selection process would inevitably present. Neither of them yet realized clearly, however, that Isabella Moreno, humiliated by Sergei's unexpected interest in someone she considered far beneath her own status, had already begun quietly plotting to eliminate this unexpected threat to her own carefully calculated ambitions. Lena had never known her parents, having grown up entirely within the city's foster care system after being abandoned as an infant. Moving between several different foster homes throughout her childhood, she had learned early to rely entirely on her own resourcefulness and quiet determination, rarely experiencing the stability or genuine affection most children took for granted. By the age of 16, Lena had already begun working various part-time jobs, determined to save enough money to eventually support herself independently once she aged out of the foster care system entirely. She had worked diligently as a waitress, a grocery store clerk, and eventually as household staff, gradually building a quiet, humble reputation for her genuine work ethic and unwavering reliability. Despite the significant hardships she had faced throughout her difficult childhood, Lena had never allowed herself to become bitter or resentful, instead choosing quietly to focus on maintaining her own personal dignity and integrity, regardless of the challenging circumstances surrounding her. She had learned early that genuine strength often came not from loud declarations or dramatic displays, but from quiet resilience and steady, consistent effort. When she had first secured her position within the Kane estate nearly a year earlier, Lena had been grateful simply for stable, respectful employment, never imagining her quiet, humble work would eventually capture the genuine attention and admiration of the estate's powerful, influential owner. She had maintained careful professional boundaries throughout her employment, unaccustomed to any personal attention from those she served, particularly someone as prominent and complicated as Sergei Kane. Sergei's unexpected interest had initially left her feeling deeply uncertain, unaccustomed to genuine attention from someone in his powerful position, especially given her own humble background and complicated history of loneliness and self-reliance. Yet something about his genuine sincerity and patient respect had gradually begun softening her natural caution and guardedness. One quiet afternoon, as Lena continued her usual duties preparing tea within the estate's private sitting room, Sergei found her once again, genuine curiosity evident clearly in his expression as their friendship continued developing naturally. "I'd like to understand more about your background, if you're comfortable sharing," he said gently. Lena hesitated briefly, unaccustomed to discussing her difficult past openly, though Sergei's genuine patience and evident sincerity gradually eased her natural reluctance. "I grew up in foster care," she admitted honestly. "I never knew my parents, and I've had to rely entirely on myself since I was quite young." Sergei listened intently, genuine empathy and admiration evident clearly in his expression. "That must have been incredibly difficult," he said sincerely. "Yet you've clearly built genuine strength and resilience from those difficult circumstances." Lena offered a small, humble smile. "I suppose so," she admitted quietly. "I've always believed that genuine character matters more than circumstances beyond our control." Sergei studied her closely, admiration deepening steadily within him. "That's a remarkably wise perspective," he said honestly. "Especially given everything you've faced throughout your life." Lena blushed softly, appreciation evident clearly in her genuine expression. "Thank you for saying that," she said sincerely. "It means a great deal, especially coming from someone in your position." As their conversation deepened further, Sergei found himself increasingly captivated by Lena's genuine humility, quiet strength, and remarkable resilience, qualities strikingly different from the calculated ambition and superficial charm he had encountered repeatedly among his family's carefully selected candidates. He found himself admiring not simply her external qualities, but the genuine depth of character she had developed through years of quiet perseverance and self-reliance. "I hope you know," Sergei said gently, sincerity evident clearly in his tone, "that your background doesn't diminish your worth in any way. If anything, it's shaped you into someone genuinely admirable." Lena felt tears of gratitude forming gently in her eyes at his sincere, heartfelt words. "Thank you, Sergei," she said softly, using his first name for the first time. "That means more to me than you probably realize." As their bond continued deepening naturally through these quiet, genuine conversations, neither Lena nor Sergei yet realized clearly just how soon Isabella's calculated jealousy and wounded pride would soon escalate into a direct, dangerous threat against Lena's safety and reputation, testing the genuine connection they had carefully begun building together. As Sergei's visits to seek out Lena became increasingly frequent, Elena Kane grew progressively more suspicious and concerned regarding her son's persistent distraction from the formal selection process. She began quietly monitoring his schedule more closely, quickly noticing the pattern of his unexplained absences coinciding suspiciously with Lena's typical working hours. "Sergey," Elena said firmly one evening, confronting her son directly, "I've noticed you've been spending considerable time away from your official duties, particularly during the same hours as certain household staff." Sergey met his mother's gaze steadily, unwilling to deny his growing feelings any longer. "I've been getting to know Lena," he admitted honestly. "My feelings for her have grown genuinely, Mother, beyond simple curiosity." Elena's expression tightened with clear disapproval. "Sergey, this is precisely the kind of distraction I feared," she said sternly. "You have significant responsibilities toward our family and our organization's continued success. A relationship with household staff simply isn't appropriate, regardless of any genuine feelings involved." Sergey felt frustration building within him, though he maintained careful respect toward his mother. "I understand your concerns," he said firmly, "but I won't dismiss genuine connection simply because it doesn't align with strategic convenience." Elena studied her son closely, clearly torn between her own protective instincts and growing recognition of his evident sincerity. "I only wish to protect our family's interests," she said quietly, though her tone carried less certainty than before. Meanwhile, word of Sergey's growing personal interest in Lena had reached Isabella Moreno, who felt deeply humiliated and threatened by this unexpected development. Determined to protect her own ambitions and social standing, Isabella began quietly plotting ways to eliminate Lena as a potential obstacle to her carefully calculated plans. "This household maid has no right interfering with my rightful position," Isabella said coldly to her own trusted confidant. "I need to find a way to expose her as unsuitable, ensuring Sergey's family sees her as the inappropriate distraction she truly represents." Her confidant studied her carefully, calculating agreement evident in her expression. "What exactly do you have in mind?" she asked cautiously. Isabella considered her options seriously, calculated determination evident clearly in her tone. "I'll find a way to embarrass her publicly, exposing her as unrefined and entirely unsuitable for someone of Sergey's standing," she said firmly. "Once his family witnesses her inevitable humiliation, they'll ensure this ridiculous distraction ends completely." Unaware of Isabella's calculated scheme forming against her, Lena continued cautiously nurturing her genuine, developing connection with Sergey, though she remained mindful of the significant challenges and complications their unconventional relationship inevitably presented. One quiet evening, as they shared a peaceful walk through the estate's private gardens, Lena expressed her own lingering concerns honestly. "I worry about the complications my background and position might create for you," she admitted softly. "Your family clearly has significant expectations, Sergey." Sergey took her hand gently, sincerity clear in his expression. "I understand those concerns," he said honestly. "But I refuse to allow superficial expectations to dictate genuine happiness. You've shown me qualities far more valuable than status or strategic advantage, Lena." Lena studied him closely, warmth and cautious hope evident clearly in her own expression. "I appreciate your sincerity," she said softly. "I only hope we can navigate these challenges successfully, together." Sergey smiled warmly, determination evident clearly in his gaze. "We will," he reassured her firmly. "Whatever obstacles arise, I intend to stand firmly by your side." As their bond continued deepening despite the mounting challenges surrounding them, neither Sergey nor Lena yet realized clearly just how soon Isabella's calculated scheme would fully unfold, threatening to publicly humiliate Lena and forcing Sergey into an important, defining choice between his family's rigid expectations and his genuine, growing love for the quiet young woman who had unexpectedly transformed his entire perspective on what truly mattered in life. Isabella Moreno had spent nearly 2 weeks carefully constructing her plan, determined to expose Lena publicly in a way that would leave Sergey's family with no choice but to end their son's inappropriate distraction once and for all. She understood clearly that a direct confrontation would likely fail, given Sergey's evident, growing loyalty toward Lena. Instead, she decided a carefully staged public humiliation, one that appeared to expose Lena's own inadequacy rather than any direct attack from Isabella herself, would prove far more effective. Learning that Elena Kane planned to host another formal gathering, this time honoring several important business partners visiting from abroad, Isabella saw her perfect opportunity. She quietly arranged, through a household contact she had carefully cultivated, for Lena to be assigned an impossible task during the event, personally overseeing a complicated, formal tea ceremony for the visiting dignitaries, a tradition Isabella herself was intimately familiar with, having studied it extensively during her privileged upbringing, but one she knew Lena would have no training or experience performing correctly. "She'll embarrass herself completely in front of everyone," Isabella explained coldly to her confidant. "Sergei's mother will see clearly that this girl has no place within our world, and Sergei himself will finally understand the humiliation his poor judgment has nearly caused." On the evening of the gathering, Lena was informed only hours beforehand that she would be responsible for conducting the formal tea ceremony, a responsibility typically reserved for someone trained extensively in the specific customs and traditions expected by their distinguished guests. Panic and anxiety flooded through her instantly as she realized the impossible situation she now faced. "I don't know the proper customs," she admitted anxiously to the head housekeeper, who had unknowingly been manipulated into assigning her this task. "This ceremony requires specific training I've simply never received." The housekeeper, confused herself by the sudden change in assignment, offered little helpful guidance, leaving Lena with mere hours to prepare for a responsibility she had no proper knowledge or experience to complete successfully. Overwhelmed and anxious, she considered informing Sergei directly of the situation, though her natural humility and reluctance to appear as though she couldn't handle her assigned duties made her hesitant to seek his direct intervention. That evening, as the formal gathering began, distinguished guests from prominent international business families gathered within the estate's grand hall, anticipation evident among them regarding the traditional tea ceremony that had been specifically requested as part of the evening's cultural exchange. Isabella watched from a discreet distance, calculated satisfaction evident clearly in her expression as she anticipated Lena's inevitable, humiliating failure. Lena, dressed carefully yet nervously in the formal attire required for the ceremony, took her position at the elegantly arranged table, her hands trembling slightly as she began attempting the complicated ceremony despite her complete lack of proper training. Within moments, small mistakes became immediately evident to the knowledgeable guests observing closely: incorrect pouring techniques, improper sequencing of traditional steps, and clear uncertainty in her unfamiliar movements. Murmurs of confusion and quiet judgment began rippling through the observing guests, several exchanging uncomfortable glances at the clearly inexperienced performance unfolding before them. Elena Kane, watching from nearby, felt clear embarrassment and frustration building within her, uncertain exactly how such an inexperienced staff member had been assigned such an important, delicate responsibility. Sergei, arriving slightly late to the gathering due to a brief business call, immediately sensed the tension and discomfort permeating the room upon his entrance. Quickly assessing the situation, he recognized Lena's clear distress and the mounting judgment surrounding her unfamiliar, faltering performance. Without hesitation, Sergei moved quickly toward the ceremony table, his expression calm yet resolute despite the tension surrounding the room. "Please, allow me to explain," he said firmly, addressing the confused and judgmental guests directly. Lena was only informed of this responsibility a few hours ago, an assignment clearly beyond what would normally be expected without proper preparation and training. The room fell into surprised silence at Sergei's direct, protective intervention. Elena studied her son carefully, confusion evident in her own expression as she began piecing together the suspicious circumstances surrounding this sudden, unexpected assignment. Who exactly assigned Lena this specific responsibility? Sergei asked directly, his tone carrying unmistakable authority as he addressed the household staff present. The head housekeeper, clearly uncomfortable under Sergei's direct scrutiny, hesitated before responding honestly. "I received specific instructions suggesting Lena would be well suited for the ceremony," she admitted nervously, "though now that I consider it more carefully, I'm uncertain exactly where those instructions originated." Sergei's gaze shifted immediately toward Isabella, whose carefully composed expression faltered slightly under his direct, suspicious scrutiny. "Isabella," he said firmly, "do you have any knowledge regarding how this assignment came about?" Isabella attempted quickly to maintain her composed innocence, though clear nervousness flickered briefly across her expression. "I couldn't possibly say," she replied smoothly, though her voice carried less confidence than usual. Sergei studied her closely, understanding clearly the calculated manipulation behind Lena's humiliating situation. "I find it curious," he said pointedly, "that someone with your extensive knowledge of traditional ceremonies happened to be present exactly when Lena was unexpectedly assigned this exact responsibility." The gathered guests, sensing the mounting tension and unspoken accusation, watched closely as Isabella's careful composure began visibly unraveling under Sergei's direct, pointed observation. Elena, recognizing clearly the manipulative implications behind her son's pointed questioning, turned her own scrutinizing gaze toward Isabella as well. "Isabella," Elena said firmly, "if you had any involvement in deliberately setting Lena up for public humiliation, I expect complete honesty immediately." Faced with mounting suspicion and the clear disapproval evident among the influential guests witnessing this unfolding confrontation, Isabella's careful composure finally shattered completely. "Fine," she admitted sharply, frustration and humiliation evident clearly in her tone. "I arranged the assignment deliberately. She doesn't belong here, interfering with a position she has no right pursuing." Gasps of shock rippled through the gathered guests at Isabella's sudden, unguarded admission. Sergei's expression hardened instantly, protective anger evident clearly beneath his controlled exterior. "Your calculated cruelty and manipulation are precisely why you'll never be considered suitable for this family," he said firmly, his voice carrying clear, unmistakable authority. Isabella, humiliated completely by her own exposed scheme, quickly excused herself, departing the gathering swiftly amid the stunned, disapproving silence of the remaining guests. Elena, visibly shaken by the unexpected revelation, turned toward Lena, genuine sympathy and newfound respect evident clearly in her expression. "I apologize deeply for this unfair situation," Elena said sincerely. "You've shown remarkable grace and composure despite an impossible, unfair circumstance." Lena, still visibly shaken from the stressful ordeal, offered a grateful, relieved smile. "Thank you for understanding," she said softly, though clear appreciation was evident toward both Elena and Sergei's protective intervention. Sergei took Lena's hand gently, sincerity and protective warmth evident clearly in his expression. "You've shown incredible strength tonight," he said softly, "despite an unfair, calculated attempt to humiliate you." As the gathering slowly resumed, guests offering genuine sympathy and admiration toward Lena's composed handling of such an unjust situation, both Sergei and Lena understood clearly that their bond had grown significantly stronger through this challenging, revealing ordeal, setting the stage for Sergei to finally, decisively choose Lena as his genuine partner, regardless of his family's original rigid expectations, and the days following Isabella's public exposure and swift departure from the Kane estate, word of her calculated manipulation spread quickly throughout their broader social and business circles, effectively ending any remaining hope she might have had of securing a favorable match within their community. Camille and Victoria, the two remaining candidates from the original selection process, quietly withdrew their own interest as well, understanding clearly that Sergei's genuine affections had already been firmly claimed by someone entirely unexpected. Elena Kane, deeply affected by witnessing Lena's remarkable grace and composure despite Isabella's cruel manipulation, found herself reconsidering entirely her previous assumptions regarding suitable, appropriate matches for her son. She requested a private meeting with Lena directly, wanting to properly understand the young woman who had so unexpectedly captured her son's genuine admiration and love. "I owe you a proper apology," Elena began sincerely during their meeting, genuine humility evident clearly in her tone. "I allowed my own rigid expectations to cloud my judgment, nearly permitting a cruel injustice against you simply because you didn't fit my preconceived notions of an appropriate match for my son." Lena studied her carefully, surprised yet genuinely touched by Elena's sincere humility. "Thank you for saying that," she replied honestly. "I understand your concerns, though I hope you'll come to see that genuine character matters more than status or background." Elena nodded, warmth and admiration evident clearly in her own expression. "I can see that clearly now," she said sincerely. "Your strength and grace throughout this entire situation have shown me exactly the kind of character I should have been seeking for my son all along." With Elena's genuine blessing now firmly secured, Sergei felt a profound sense of relief and happiness, understanding clearly the significance of his mother's acceptance regarding his authentic feelings toward Lena. Later that evening, he arranged a quiet, intimate dinner within the estate's private garden, wanting to properly express the depth of his genuine feelings toward Lena without the complications and pressures of formal, public settings. "Lena," he began softly, taking her hands gently in his own as they sat together beneath the soft glow of garden lights, "these past weeks have shown me clearly what genuine love and partnership truly mean. From the very first evening I saw you quietly serving tea, completely unconcerned with impressing anyone, I found myself more genuinely captivated than I ever expected." Lena smiled warmly, genuine happiness and emotion evident clearly in her own expression. "I never imagined someone in your position would ever look twice at someone like me," she admitted honestly. Yet you've shown me such genuine kindness, patience, and respect throughout this entire journey." Sergei studied her closely, sincerity and hope clear in his gaze. "I'd like the opportunity to build a genuine future with you, Lena," he said honestly. "Not because of strategic convenience or family expectations, but because I've genuinely fallen in love with your quiet strength, your resilience, and the remarkable character you've developed despite every hardship life has placed before you." Tears of happiness began forming gently in Lena's eyes as she processed his heartfelt, genuine words. "I've fallen in love with you as well, Sergei," she admitted softly, her voice trembling slightly with genuine emotion. "I never anticipated finding such genuine connection and belonging, especially not within a world so different from anything I've ever known." Sergei smiled warmly, gently producing a small, elegant ring from his pocket, genuine nervousness and hope evident clearly in his own expression despite his usual composed confidence. "Lena, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" he asked sincerely, sincerity and vulnerability evident clearly in his voice. Not chosen through calculated strategy or formal obligation, but through genuine love and authentic connection. Overwhelmed with genuine happiness, Lena nodded quickly, tears streaming freely down her face as she embraced him warmly. "Yes," she whispered softly, joy evident clearly in her trembling voice. "Absolutely, yes." Their engagement, once formally announced, initially surprised many within their broader social circle, accustomed to strategic, calculated matches rather than genuine, authentic love stories. Yet as word gradually spread regarding Lena's remarkable strength, humility, and genuine character, particularly following the public exposure of Isabella's cruel manipulation, most within their community came to genuinely admire and respect Sergei's unconventional yet clearly heartfelt choice. In the months leading up to their wedding, Lena gradually transitioned away from her previous household duties, though she remained genuinely humble and grounded despite her significant change in circumstances. She began quietly involving herself in charitable initiatives specifically supporting orphaned and foster children, using her own difficult past experiences to genuinely and meaningfully improve the lives of children facing similarly challenging circumstances. Elena, once cautious and disapproving, became genuinely supportive and involved, personally assisting Lena in navigating the complexities of her new position within their prominent family, offering guidance and support rather than judgment or rigid expectation. Their relationship, once tense and uncertain, blossomed into genuine warmth and mutual respect, Elena coming to view Lena not simply as her son's chosen partner, but as a genuine daughter she had come to sincerely admire and love. On their wedding day, held within the same elegant estate where their unlikely journey had first begun, Lena stood confidently before their gathered guests, dressed elegantly yet still carrying the same genuine humility and quiet strength that had first captured Sergei's attention months earlier. As Sergei watched her approach, his heart swelled with genuine love and admiration, deeply grateful for the unconventional, unexpected path that had led him toward authentic happiness rather than calculated strategic convenience. "I choose you," Sergei said softly during their private vows, taking Lena's hands gently in his own, "not because tradition or strategy dictated this choice, but because you've shown me genuine strength, humility, and love, qualities far more valuable than any status or superficial elegance could ever provide." Lena smiled warmly, tears of genuine happiness evident clearly in her own expression. "And I choose you," she replied softly, grateful every day that a simple cup of tea led us toward genuine, unexpected love. As they exchanged their heartfelt vows, surrounded by family and friends who had come to genuinely admire their authentic, unconventional love story, both Sergei and Lena understood clearly that true happiness and lasting partnership were never truly about status, strategy, or superficial expectations, but rather about genuine character, resilience, and the courage to choose authentic love over calculated convenience. Reflecting quietly that evening, watching the sunset together as newlyweds from the estate's peaceful garden balcony, Lena considered deeply the remarkable, unexpected journey that had transformed her life so completely since that formal evening when she had simply been quietly serving tea to distinguished guests. What had begun as an ordinary evening fulfilling humble household duties had transformed completely into something Lena had never imagined possible. Genuine love, authentic belonging, and a meaningful, lasting partnership, proving clearly that true happiness often arrives not through calculated strategy, but through the quiet, genuine strength of authentic character shining through even the most unassuming circumstances.